Imagine someone asks you to meet them tomorrow. No time given, just a place, the market square, the old bridge, the edge of town, and a day. You nod. They walk away. Now here's the question. How do you actually show up? No phone, no watch, no alarm, no clock on your wall. You can't text to say you're running late. You can't check a screen. You have nothing but the world around you and the vague agreement you just made with another human being. And yet, for thousands of years, billions of people did exactly this. They built cities. They ran markets. They coordinated armies, scheduled trials, caught ships, organized harvests. All of it, without a single clock. So how? Because the answer isn't what you think. And once you understand it, you'll never look at your watch the same way again. Most people assume that before clocks, life was just chaotic, imprecise, that nobody cared about time. That's not what happened. Ancient humans were obsessed with time. Stonehenge is a clock, a 4,000-year-old stone clock that marks the exact moment of the summer solstice sunrise to within minutes. The Maya measured the solar year to within 17 seconds per year. These weren't primitive people stumbling through fog. These were civilizations that turned the sky itself into a timepiece. But here's where it gets complicated. Knowing the year, the season, the day, that's one problem. Knowing what hour it is, when exactly to show up somewhere, that's a completely different problem. And it was about to get very strange. The first obvious solution: use the sun. Watch where the shadow falls. Read the position of the sun. Divide daylight into segments. Simple, except almost immediately, everything breaks. Here's what nobody tells you. For most of human history, an hour wasn't 60 minutes. An hour was a fraction of daylight. Ancient Romans, Greeks, Egyptians, they all divided the available daylight into 12 parts. Each part was 1 hour, which sounds fine until you realize that daylight changes every single day. In Rome, a summer hour was about 75 modern minutes. A December hour, 45 minutes. The same third hour of the morning in June was completely different in length from the third hour in October. Every hour was a different size. Every day, every season. So when someone told you to meet them at the third hour, what they were actually saying was, meet me when the sun has traveled through 3/12 of today's available daylight since sunrise. Try building a civilization on that. And yet, they did, because they had a technology so simple, so powerful, that modern society quietly discarded it without most people noticing. Think about what life actually sounded like in an ancient city. Not traffic, not notifications, bells. In medieval Europe, the monastery bell was the most important piece of technology in any region. Not the sword, not the plow, the bell. Because monks had an urgent problem. They had prayers, 7 of them every day, at fixed intervals from before dawn to after dark. Miss one and you answered to God. So monks became the world's first professional timekeepers. They divided the day into what they called the canonical hours. And when the bell rang from the tower, everyone within earshot knew what time it was. Not just the monks, the farmer, the blacksmith, the merchant, the mother in the kitchen. Everyone organized their lives around that bell. You weren't checking a watch. You were listening for a signal, a shared public acoustic signal that told an entire community when to start, when to stop, and when to meet. The bell was the original synchronized clock, and it was free to everyone who could hear it. But most ancient people didn't have water clocks or elaborate instruments. They had something much older. They had each other. Before clocks, time was not a private possession you carried on your wrist. Time was communal, and appointments weren't made for 3 o'clock. They were made for events. Meet me at sunrise. Come after the midday meal. Find me before the evening bell. Time was anchored to real, observable, shared phenomena, not to abstract numbers on a mechanical dial. And here's what genuinely shakes something loose in your brain. This actually worked, not just adequately, beautifully. The Roman Forum had a public sundial. When the Senate needed to convene, a herald shouted the time across the square. Medieval markets opened at the first bell and closed at the last. A baker knew when to light the ovens. A tanner knew when to close. They weren't less organized than us. They were differently organized. Their time was a collective agreement, not an individual measurement. Then, sometime in the late 13th century, someone in Europe built the first mechanical clock. No face, no hands, just interlocking gears and a weighted mechanism that rang a bell at measured intervals. At first, it wasn't so different from what monks had always done manually. But here's the thing. Mechanical clocks could be standardized. The variable hour, the one that shrank and stretched with the seasons, began to disappear, replaced by the equal hour. 60 minutes. Always. Everywhere. It sounds like a gift. In many ways, it was. But something else happened that nobody planned for. When time became standardized, it stopped belonging to everyone. It started belonging to whoever owned the clock. The mill owner who posted working hours on his gate. The employer who could now tell a worker objectively that they were late. The court that could issue orders specifying exact hours. The shipping company that set departure times in minutes, not tidal windows. Time became a tool of control. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. The bigger picture, zoom out now. This story isn't really about clocks. It's about something fundamental to what human beings are. We are social creatures who need to coordinate, and every civilization that has ever existed has had to solve the same problem. How do you get people separated by distance, by routine, by completely different daily lives to arrive at the same place at the same time? In China, incense clocks burned at calibrated rates, different scented sections for different times of day. You could smell what time it was. Medieval monks timed prayers by counting psalms aloud. They measured time with their own voices. Throughout all of it, the real mechanism was always the same. Agreement. Someone decided this moment was noon. Someone rang a bell. Everyone within range agreed to organize their lives around that signal. Time, at its core, has never been a physical fact. It has always been a collective agreement. One we all choose to believe simultaneously. Final closing thought. So how did anyone show up anywhere before clocks were invented? They showed up because the sky told them roughly where in the day they were, and that was enough. They showed up because bells carried time through the air to anyone who listened. They showed up because when you say, "Meet me at sunset," the sunset doesn't lie, and it doesn't care whether you're rich or poor. They showed up because human beings have always, desperately, needed to find each other. Here's the thought that stays with you. We invented clocks to measure time more precisely, and we succeeded so completely that modern civilization depends on atomic clocks accurate to 1 second every 300 million years. But our ancestors weren't measuring time. They were living it. They didn't ask, "What time is it?" They asked, "What's happening now?" The next time you feel anxious about being 30 seconds late, remember the monk counting psalms in the dark. Remember the farmer listening for a bell across a winter field. They had no idea what time it was, and they built everything anyway.